Cloud migration is not a new concept. We've been at it for close to a decade now, but not all cloud migrations have gone according to the plan. So many have run into issues like cost overruns, security. There are all kinds of myths. There are lofty expectations from the cloud sometimes that are not met. You will find today's podcast to be essentially a best practice, practical, as well as thought provoking as we dig into the story behind Equifax cloud migration. Bryson, thank you so much for joining this podcast. We had lunch at Gartner Data and Analytics Summit in Orlando in March, and I was fascinated by your approach to cloud migration. I felt that your story needed to be shared to the community. So I'm really glad that you took some time to come to the podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, and really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. You've been in a leadership role steering this whole modernization effort at Equifax. And the funny thing is, just before we started this podcast, I was talking about best practices, and you're like, well, what are best practices? Because we are living in such a evolving world that even the best practices are constantly changing. This is why we are so excited to have this conversation. And I would love to have you introduce yourself.
Well, great. So I'm Bryson Koehler. I'm the Chief Product, Data Analytics, and Technology Officer for Equifax. My job is to run all of our teams globally that look after our product management portfolio with our Chief Product Officer, Cecilia Mao, our data and analytics capabilities, and our data scientists with Harald Schneider, and all of the technology and engineering and operational teams across the CTOs around our business.
So, how big is your organization?
So at Equifax, that whole team, including some of the consultants and third-party, folks, it's about 8,500 people on a global basis. It's a huge part of the company. Data is at the heart of Equifax. We pride ourselves being a data analytics and technology company. We've been going through a big transformation and an investment in our technology capabilities. We've really brought our product management discipline to life over the last 4 years, and really brought together a new way of thinking about data science in a more cloud native concept. And so it's a big team, but if you think about Equifax, that is what we are. We're a data analytics and technology company. That's what we build, sell, and operate. So it's a big team.
It's amazing that you call Equifax a data and analytics company, and the market thinks of Equifax as a financial services company. So for those who don't know what Equifax does, can you please give us some information about what is Equifax business?
Yeah, so Equifax is a global company. We operate in 24 or 5 countries around the world. And we help hundreds of millions of people and almost 90 million businesses live their financial best. So we do help lots of people make better decisions in their personal life, with credit monitoring and identity theft. We help businesses manage their business better with business risk information, commercial identity and fraud solutions. We obviously work across many different verticals. So while people think of us as a financial services, company, really we're much broader than that. The work we do across the retail sector with identity solutions, fraud solutions, analytical services, marketing capabilities. I think that's a really important part of what we do. And so if you think about Equifax, we use the data that we have on over 800 million consumers around the world, and like I said, almost 90 million businesses worldwide, and we use all of that to help make decisions. Who is Bryson?
Right.
Is this Bryson? Is this fraud against Bryson? Should I hire Bryson? What's Bryson's background? Has Bryson been incarcerated? Has Bryson been buying a lot of Sudafed lately? Maybe Bryson's up to no good with all of that Sudafed. all the way into the traditional things around, should I loan Bryson money? Is that loan for a car? Is it a new car or is it a used car? Is it for a house? Is it for education? Are you buying a new refrigerator at the Home Depot down the road? All of these things that Equifax does is around assembling vast amounts of information and then using that information to help people live their financial best, make the right decision, get that next job, get that first apartment, get that car. Whatever it is that they need, our job is to help connect the people that need and the people that want and the people that can provide. And how do we connect all of that together?
Bryson, when did you join Equifax, and how has the company evolved in those intervening years?
Yeah, so I joined Equifax in 2018. I came on board as a part of a refocus of the strategy of the company to really rebuild Equifax and turn it into a very modern technology business. Equifax, before 2018 had a lot of, technical debt and, data centers and data systems that were not interoperable, made it very hard for data scientists to do their job. Our data wasn't as, timely or reliable as we wanted it to be. And it was a legacy business. And, all the way from our roots back 123, 24 years ago, Equifax has come a long way. But we, I think fundamentally still looked at our data as individual silos of information based upon how it was collected. And in a modern world, when you're really trying to put together a full 360 view of Bryson, I want my data assets connected when they benefit me, right? And so if somebody's going to look to hire me and run a background check on me, or if somebody is going to look at my previous employment history, my income, verify that, help me get that mortgage over the line, help me get the best rate on my mortgage, whatever it is that I'm seeking to do as an individual, I turn to Equifax to help me do that, in the most efficient way, the most accurate way, the most timely way. And so we had to really transform Equifax. We had to think about, building out a completely new way to handle the pipeline of our data, right? So as you think about the pipeline of data, how we ingest data, catalog data, bring those data assets together, key and link them so that we can actually create that 360 view. Those interrelationships are so important. So we've been transforming Equifax over the last 5 years, moving ourselves from legacy data centers into the cloud, rebuilding, not lift and shifting, re-ingesting all of our data, and completely reimagining how we think about data, how we do analytics on that data, and the products that we build that help people live their financial best. On top of all of that, we now have a common way across the world. We run in 7 different Google Cloud regions around the world, and we have a consistent data infrastructure. We have a common way now to handle data, the flow and pipeline of our data, a common way to store it, a common set of tools for how we build and execute and deploy and run models, how our data scientists work with that data, common infrastructure across our decisioning environments as well. And then, our product portfolio, as we have moved away from, majority of our business being kind of what I would call legacy batch data transfers into a more real-time API-driven, what I would call runtime of our customers' business, integrating ourselves deeply into how our customers work into their decisioning flows. And that required us to, rethink our distribution stack, rethink how we were going to build and deploy infrastructure, and think very differently about data and about latency and about how we wanted to become, more critical to the runtime decision, not a decision of what happened yesterday, but a decision of what's happening now, and a bit of a projection and a forecast around what's going to happen in the future.
This is really great to hear. In fact, this is bulk of what we are going to discuss today. Your cloud migration, your approach to how going to more real time, more current data, and being more predictive rather than uh, trying to make decisions on
Right.
old data. But one thing that I want to get out of the conversation right at the beginning is, I'm sure some people are watching this and going, wait, isn't Equifax the same company that had leaked or had a security breach? I believe that was in 2017. That was before your time.
That was before my time. Yeah, it was a while ago, but obviously something that made sure that, and we've worked very hard to
Mhm.
make sure that that doesn't happen again. We're entrusted with a lot of data, and we've got to operate beyond reproach on our architecture, on our security, our hygiene. We have to be the world's best at it, and we've invested over $1.5 billion over the last several years, rebuilding to do just that.
Mhm.
We now publish our annual security report publicly, so everybody can see exactly where we stand, and you'll see we're really in the upper 99th percentile as a Gartner score, or from a BitSight score, or whatever outside lens you want to apply to us. So we take our work very seriously. We've done a really, I think, amazing job rebuilding not just the technology, but the people, the culture, our ways of working. I think part of that was our move to the cloud, right?
That is
And
great. And
I'm sure we'll talk about that, but
yeah, yeah.
that's
In fact, I want to ask you, when you joined in 2018, how many data centers did you have? What was your on-premises footprint?
so we had about 67 data centers at the time.
Wow.
We had about 5,500 databases around those data centers, and they were of all makes, models, shapes,
Mhm.
sizes. We had even built a few databases over the decades prior. So it was a company that had grown through acquisition, a company that hadn't completely mastered the art of fully integrating those acquisitions. And those 67 data centers were what I would kind of look at as legacy, and weren't fit for purpose for where we wanted to take the company moving forward. And so we've closed over 24 data centers so far, we're going to end this year with about north of 70% of our North American revenue running on our new environment. And so for a company that had 0% of their revenue running in the cloud, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, to be at a place where in North America will be north of 70% at the end of this year, I think is quite remarkable for a highly regulated data business. And so you can look around the world, and our international properties. In Europe, we're very far along. In fact, in Spain, I think we'll be 99%, 98, 99% of our revenue running in the cloud by the end of this year. So you got to look at each country, but
Yeah.
incredible journey by the team.
Where do you see the cloud migration reaching some sort of a stable point? Like, do you see getting out of all data centers? Like Capital One famously exited every single data center and went 100% into.
Yeah. I mean, look, my goal is to get out of all of our data centers. Now, we are very acquisitive. We've acquired 14 businesses in the last several years. Those businesses come with their own, legacy environments. And I think it's important to note that that's not just about a legacy, infrastructure, but for a modern technology company, even somebody running in the cloud, if you
Mhm.
acquire somebody running in the cloud, that doesn't mean that they're fit for purpose. The
Yeah.
cloud doesn't just instantly guarantee you that you're doing the right things. So we have a very specific point of view in our engineering handbook that we've outlined on how we look at technology, the technologies we will use, the ones we won't use, our philosophy around how we build and operate software. And so even if we acquire a business that's fully in the cloud, there's uplift that we are going through to ensure that we're running them the Equifax way. So, but our goal for all of our legacy on-prem infrastructure is to be out of it. And we're going to continue to shut down data centers, every month as we continue to migrate workloads.
How did you evaluate which is the right cloud provider? And also, there is this concentration risk issue that keeps coming up in Europe. How do you see that, the whole hybrid multi-cloud, and how do you decide where eventually to move that workload?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think the concentration risk is media stuff, and I think it's stuff by some parties that probably just haven't had the time to be fully educated about how all of this stuff actually works today. Um, if you had outsourced your work to, say, IBM in the past, I'm not sure and you were running on mainframes across multiple IBM data center regions, I'm not sure that anybody would look at that as concentration risk, even though it was manageable, and probably not the real problem. So I believe that this concentration risk thing is, media, stuff to spin up stories.
Yeah, actually, I've always been a bit confused about this concentration risk that says if a cloud provider goes down in, let's say, Europe, some region, then you should be able to migrate to another cloud provider. But the other cloud provider, how are you going to migrate petabytes of data?
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're not. I mean, I think so. Look, there's what I would call multi-cloud and multiple cloud.
I see.
At Equifax, we are a multiple cloud company. We are not a multi-cloud company. And and I think it's important to differentiate the two. To me, multiple cloud, meaning I have workloads that run in AWS today, that run in Azure today, and run in GCP today. Multi-cloud to me is where I'm trying to take the same workload and run it across two clouds simultaneously. I don't think that that's a good use of time and energy. I think in order to do that, you end up having to go to least common denominator. You end up abstracting away so much of the value from our cloud providers. It's not needed. It's not actually a benefit. I actually think it makes things worse, makes things more complex, more costly, and I actually think adds risks in terms of your stability into the environment. So multiple cloud, I think that's the nature of our world, right? If you're, even if you say I'm going to be all in on AWS, well, what are you going to use for email? I mean, you're either going to end up running email on Microsoft or Google. So already you have another cloud in your mix, right? And so I think the multiple cloud is a part of doing business today. Multi-cloud is, I think, a failed premise from the past where we had this concern around vendor lock-in. We had this concern around, being able to migrate workloads. But I think, well-architected clouds have really good separation of fault domains across their regions. And while we know they're not exactly perfect, because we see from time to time where one zone issue spreads to another zone, or two zones spread to another region, and there are issues, by and large, the fault domains that, say, a Google or an Amazon have set up are so robust that as long as you're multi-region and you've done work to be able to run hot across those regions, and you're doing work in your deployments to do true blue-green deployments, and you're swinging region traffic, and you're constantly testing that your system is actually fully resilient and independent of that, of regional, dependencies, then I think you're in great shape, and you're far better than you ever were with anything that you had on-prem through any approach that you had. A true multi-region cloud deployment on Google or Amazon is going to be light years ahead of anything that you could have ever done in the best architected on-prem solution. So that's where I think people should spend their time. Now, when we chose Google as our primary cloud provider, we did a lot of work. And we obviously looked at, the three big hyperscalers. We did a lot of work to think about the pros and the cons. And look, we chose Google because I think Google is the best architected cloud that's out there. I think that they're a cloud built for data. I think they're a cloud that has a very unique set of differentiated data solutions. I think Bigtable and BigQuery, Spanner, completely different. Spanner is a remarkable technology that I don't think any other cloud provider has anything close to. And so, I think Google, for us, being a data company, Google was the right choice. We're a big partner with Amazon. We do run a tremendous amount of workload on Amazon. We have a lot of our application portfolio there. We acquire companies. A lot of them come in through Amazon. So Amazon's a very important partner for us, and will continue to be so. But in terms of our data strategy, our analytics strategy, and the primary cloud provider for Equifax, we chose Google. And I think that's about the relationship. It's about the culture of how the teams operate. We've been fortunate to win Google Customer of the Year 3 years in a row now from Google. I think it speaks to the real depth of our team and the Google team, being strong together. Google's come a long way. GCP 5 years ago, it was not the GCP that we have today. So I always have a view that you're always placing a bet with partners, not on the company that they are right now, but the company that they will be in 3 years' time, right? Technology changes very quickly. And it was my view that Google was hungry, that Google was well engineered, that Google was not very well documented, right? It was probably the best engineered, worst documented cloud that was out there. But it was my view that they were going to fix that. It was my view that they were going to invest in kind of what I would call, enterprising their cloud, making it more, enterprise friendly and ready. It was also my view that as AI was evolving, that Google had a superior advantage, because I'm not aware of a company on earth that has more training data than Google. Right? Google has an immense amount of training data, which to me, their use cases across their fleet of consumer products globally just gives them, to me, an edge in how they've built hardware, architected their network, and built out the model capabilities that they have today. So it was a bet on the future. It was not a purchase of the current. Yeah. And that's paid off for us really well. We're very pleased with our setup.
You have a North Star, a single thing that tells you that this has been a success.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our business, we've been able to dramatically grow revenue, up a couple $1 billion while transforming, up a couple $1 billion while going through a global pandemic, up a couple $1 billion while turning off the old data centers, while acquiring 14 new companies and working through full integration with them. I think that's remarkable achievement. And it just demonstrates the power that, on the cloud, you really can do many things at once. And I think when you look at our ability now to manage our unit cost of deployment, being able to scale the number of data sources, if you take our EWS verification business, in 2018, we had 25,000 contributors to that environment, which is a remarkable number, and it really helped people more quickly verify their previous income and employment, help them close that mortgage faster. That's a benefit for consumers. That's why that exists. Today we have over 2.5 million contributors, right? So our ability to scale the number of data sources, we now have more coverage. We make it easier to be able to do this fully electronically. We wouldn't have been able to do that in our legacy on-prem environment. It would have been prohibitively expensive. And going after the long tail of small data sources wouldn't have made commercial sense. And so, a simple example of the power of the cloud for Equifax is just looking at those contributors and the growth that we've had there. That's been successful for us commercially, but it's been hugely successful for consumers. as they've been able to, gain access to their records electronically, speeding up that closure process on say, a mortgage origination.
So I'm hearing there are a lot of these KPIs, how fast you close, how many new data sources you can onboard. I'm wondering, as a data person, you had 5,500 databases. You talked about the power of Spanner, Bigtable, and BigQuery. Do you know how many databases did you consolidate it down to?
I mean, it's hard. There's no really such thing as a database now, right? So, but I can look at it in terms of our data domains.
Yeah.
So if we look at our domains that we have on Bigtable, we went from 5,500 databases, of which I would say at least every one of those had at least one domain, probably multiple, right? We're down to about 155 domains. So we've done a great job across our data office, rationalizing our data domains. What we will allow to be a domain, the subdomains that exist. And so I think when you look at taking 5,500 down to 155, that's how I look at the rationalization of that data footprint. Obviously, the number of records has grown tremendously, but our ability now to rationalize that key and link that, meaning creating an entity key for a person, a place, a thing, and all of the linking of the signals that exist, right? If we're trying to do a retail fraud detection, we want to understand everything about that device, the IP address, where it's coming from, where have we seen it before, what's the ship to address, have we seen other signals? We're accelerating e-commerce merchants' ability to quickly approve that transaction, reduce fraud and friction in the process, and obviously keep costs down for consumers by reducing the amount of fraud in that space. All of those volumes are way up. And we've been able to do that while rationalizing the portfolio and the estate quite dramatically.
You've also talked about earlier in this about product management. What is the role of product management? And the reason I'm asking this is because I actually published a book in September called Data Products for Dummies. So there's a big emphasis in my research on data products. What are your views?
Yeah, so I love that question. And to me, it's one of the most important things, right? So, when I arrived at Equifax, one of the things that I kind of, reflected on was that, we were a project company. We were very good at listening to customers and building projects for them. But that wasn't really the right way to continue to evolve. In fact, our customers don't want proprietary project-based work anymore. It's too hard to maintain. It falls behind. They're not able to quickly upgrade to the latest. So we wanted to get everybody onto a common technology platform, common capabilities that could be evergreened and constantly improved, and allow the differentiation be the data. We have incredibly differentiated data at Equifax that nobody else has. Our customers have their own differentiated data that nobody else has, and the power of bringing that together on the Equifax cloud, we think is top shelf, bar none to anybody else that's out there. But to do that required us to stop doing projects and start building products. To really bring in the multi-generational product mindset, a mindset around understanding our customers' needs, understanding the market, understanding where was the puck headed, and then working through what was the right balance of investment. You always have to run what you have well. That's an investment that you have to always make. You need to invest in the new. You need to tune what you have. You need to make it run better, but you also need to invest in the new. These are always trade-offs that have to be made. And the right product manager for anything that they're running, whether it's a back office service or a go-to-market product, there's a product management discipline and mindset for everything that has a life, right? It has an idea, a concept, it has an initial launch and release and growth. It has a plateau, and then most products end up having an end of life. And you have to properly take everything you build, run, and operate through that life cycle if you're really going to get great at it. We believe at Equifax that our investment in the Equifax cloud and the constant investment in our products, by being able to focus on fewer things makes them better, makes them deeper, makes them richer, makes them more market competitive, and in many of our cases, market leading. And I think that, that discipline that a product manager is, as I say it, the CEO of their thing, right? And that thing could be a data asset. It could be a model. It could be a score. It could be a mobile app. It could be a web application. It could be a data feed, right? It could also be an internal capability, right? Our IVR that our contact centers use, right? The desktop screens that our contact center agents use. That's a product. We don't sell it. Only Equifax people use it.
Right.
But we think about it as a product. We have roadmaps for it. We publish those roadmaps. They're multi-generational in terms of what we're going to do this quarter, next quarter, this year, next year, the year after that. Obviously, we will always modify and adapt those, but we don't want to think about it as like, well, we're going to do a project on it. We just think about it as it's a release, it's an upgrade, it's a set of features. Those features were prioritized in the backlog based upon a lot of input. We look at the ROI. Did that dollar that we invested there, did it generate the best return for us against the dollar we could have spent over here? That robust product management discipline is what has led us now to having, 4 years of record NPIs, what we call new product innovations that we release into the market. Those new products help us power the future of Equifax. We track what's called the Vitality Index. And for us, that's a measurement of the amount of revenue that we put into market and that we drive into the company over products we've released over the last 3 years. So if we look at all the revenue last quarter that we announced, and we look at all of the products that drove it, that were released in the last 3 years, 15% of Equifax revenue last quarter was generated by products we've released into production in the last 3 years. That is a sign of a highly, a high vitality index, a very vibrant company that's really, powering its growth with new leading innovative products that, the market, likes to adopt. And we think that measuring that kind of vitality index, showcasing that multi-generational view, we think that that's what our customers love, because just like with me, when I chose Google Cloud, I wasn't investing in the Google Cloud of 5 years ago. I was investing in what I thought Google Cloud would be like in 2023, right? And I think many of our customers, when they're coming to sign up with Equifax and they look at us, they are looking at what is Equifax going to be like in 2025, 2026? Where are you guys going? How will the power of your cloud investment enable me to maximize my partnership with you? And we think that that's all part of that product mindset.
Yeah. This is so important what you just said, because there's a lot of skepticism in the market sometimes. People think IT folks overhype new paradigms. And so I constantly get this question, who is doing data products? And listening to you, not only are you doing data products, but you are even able to correlate the revenue recognition and the productivity of people, of the data team with that. So this is very refreshing to hear. The question I have is, how was the journey, the change of the data culture, the change in the organization as you moved from a very project-oriented teams into the product thinking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was hard. It was challenging. I think there's a lot of skepticism on this whole product mindset when it's new. And I think that sometimes it's just that word product. When we think about a product, we think about this is some Bose headphones. This is a product that Bose makes. I can touch it, I can feel it, I can hold it, I can put them on, I can use them. But data is a product too. I can't necessarily, I can print it out, I guess, and hold it, but I can't hold the digital dust of data, but I must treat it like a product because it will become antiquated and out of date if I don't invest in it, if I don't keep it current, if I don't curate it, if I don't make it better, if I'm not constantly improving it. And that is a roadmap of investment, but you can't just randomly invest dollars. You have to be thoughtful about where you choose to spend your dollars. And so you need to understand the market. You need to understand where you're going to sell 2 years from now. You need to understand the competitive landscape. What are others doing? You need to understand regulatory and what you're facing there. And so all of those things have to get put into a big pot, right? And mixed together, right? And then you have to trade off, well, I've got, this set of defects. Should I fix this defect or should I go build this feature? And it's the same dollar that you're competing for. And somebody's got to make that very logical, business oriented decision. It's not a technology thing, it's a business decision. And the right product manager should have a strong technical aptitude and be able to make the right trade-off decisions between those things and constantly balance and keep that product moving forward. If all you ever do is fix defects and your goal is to be defect free, then you're not going to have any time to ever build new features. If all you do is build new features, then your product's going to kind of fall by the wayside and become bug ridden, slow, cumbersome, and not very fun to use. And so, I think there's no company can go through a transformation today without bringing the idea of product management into their business. And even if you're a data business, if we have a score, right, your credit score, as an example, and we have hundreds of scores that we produce across all of the places we operate and types of businesses that we work, each of those has its own story. Each of those needs to constantly get better. Each of those needs new data, needs new modeling, can take advantage of better machine learning techniques, can think about all types of risk detection. These are all trade-off decisions that you have to make with the resources you have available. And if you're not treating your data like a product, if you're not treating your models and scores like a product, if you're not treating your products like products, then you end up just doing projects and bolting stuff together. And I'm not sure, then that you end up with anything that doesn't resemble Frankenstein. And, I think in today's world, when we see a Frankenstein product, we know it, and we don't really ever go back to it. And the time it takes for us to switch to something else now is shorter than ever. And so you've got a very short window to grab people's attention, prove to them that you're on point, that you've got a real plan, that you're investing in the future, that if they invest today, they can come along with you. They don't have to go through a big project to upgrade to something later. I think all of that is tied to the importance of product management.
Yeah, in fact, since we are talking about innovation, my next question was going to be on this whole cloud cost issue we keep hearing about. But I want to wait on that for a second because I want to stick to this amazing track you're on, talking about, dollars are limited, so you have to, invest in innovation, innovative product, and get the adoption, which makes me think about what is your thinking about generative AI. What is Equifax doing today, or what it's not doing today? What's your approach?
Well, I think, as we've talked about media hype a number of times, I think, generative AI is a bit over its skis right now on hype. And, I think we have to recognize that AI is, not just a year old, right? AI has been with us for decade plus in terms, many decades in terms of, the ability, a decade probably in terms of actually really bringing it to life. And we've been using it at Equifax for 7, 8, 9 years. And so I think you have to, think about AI. You have to think about machine learning. You've got to really understand how deep learning fits into that. You have to think about the different approaches and characteristics and how you go from, say, linear regression, and you go into, neural nets, and you go into gradient boosting, and then you go into, say, Bayesian inferencing. There's techniques all over the place that are fit for purpose for certain types of workload. And I think generative is fantastic, and really has true opportunities as we continue to watch the cost of inferencing decrease. You can start to really think about broader use cases. I don't think we're fully there yet. I think the cost of operating Chat GPT-4 is somewhere north of $750,000 a day in compute costs. That's not cheap.
Correct.
How many people can afford to pay for it to solve their use case in production? It's one thing to do it as a proof of concept. It's super cool. We're all playing with it. But then to shift it into, where will I trust it? Where and where can I be certain that it's not going to hallucinate? And what's the appropriate amount of training data that I have to get to a level of confidence that I can really put it in front of my customers and fully trust it, not as a game, not as a beta product, but as a true commercialized production capability? There's a lot of work to do, right? We've got a lot of work to do. Certainly, in our career lifetimes, we're going to see it really pay dividends. But I think we all need to pace ourselves and make sure that we're also not forgetting that, a large language model is not the approach that everybody needs to solve problems. There are many cases where natural language processing, vision and document type of processing and machine learning capabilities are fit for purpose. And in many cases, the inferencing is, far less expensive. So you've got to really think about, I think, the whole landscape of AI and not get focused up on, AI du jour.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Yeah. This is really good to know. Bryson, going back to cloud migration topic, there's been a constant sort of undercurrent, if you may, that cloud cost, when you move to the cloud, costs go up. And so be careful of moving to the cloud. Did you see any examples in your case where that happened?
No. Yeah, there's no question in my mind that, unless you are operating at the scale of a hyperscaler, that running on the cloud is a more cost-effective way to run. Now, you've got to keep in mind a lot of things, right? The percentage of legacy workloads run on-prem properly, I would argue, is very low, right? How many people really have, multi-region hot setups, right? Very few, if any, right? Are those multi-region hot setups so similar that you can run the exact same code deployment pipeline for both of them? Or are there differences in infrastructure, hardware, hypervisors that are different between your data center in Kansas versus your data center in New York? Well, yeah, guess what? They were bought under different capital plans. One was bought this year, the other one was bought 3-4 years ago. They're just different. And therefore, now all of a sudden, you've got different tuning. You've got different pipelines for your code and configurations. And so you don't have the same. You have actually something different. It adds overhead. And so, people that go to the cloud get a bill, right? If I'm running in my legacy data center that's 6.5 years old, my CFO depreciated it, 4 years ago, right? It's free.
Yep.
Well, it's hard for me to compare a bill with free, right? So if that's the kind of math people are doing, absolutely, the cloud costs more. But that's not really a proper disciplined way to look at it. You've got to really understand, what should it cost to run what I have well? What is the proper way for me to run in a truly hot, highly automated, treating infrastructure as code environment? And what will that cost me? And I have never seen math that shows me that doing that on a public cloud infrastructure costs more than trying to do that in an on-prem environment. I think the other benefit of the cloud, as we've launched workloads at Equifax over the last several years, we always get better, right? When you launch your first version, your team is still learning. Your team is still experimenting. Your team is still figuring it out. We've been able to tune about a third of our cloud costs out this year alone, right? Just through tuning, right? And I think it is completely achievable. Next year, we'll pull another 25% of our cloud costs out. Now, our consumption continues to grow, so that doesn't mean that my total cloud bill goes down, but I've been able to rationalize the unit cost of my delivery. And I've done that by changing my hardware types, my deployment types. I've changed some of the tools that I've chosen. And guess what? On the cloud, I didn't have to buy any of that stuff. And so if I want to go from instance type 1 to instance type 2, I can go do that. If I find that I have a more memory hungry workload and I need a more memory powered environment or less memory, why do I need so much memory on this box? Let me drop to a lower one. If I do that on-prem, I've already bought my hardware. I'm sunk. And so I had to estimate years ago, before the project started, what I think I needed. There's no way I got that right. There's no way I will get that right. And now I'm stuck with running it until it dies. Yeah. And so in the cloud, my ability to not be stuck with that fallacy of sunk cost enables me the freedom of choice to go quickly choose something new. So there is no question in my mind that the cloud provides the opportunity for the most secure environment as well as the most cost-effective environment.
You also have to be very much aware of what you have, right? I remember you had mentioned you were on a quest to find out all this database storage that was not being utilized, or machine learning models. I think you found like hundreds of machine learning models that were no longer being used, and so you saved a lot of money rationalizing that too, right?
Well, part of that was the data scientists of, I would say, of old, right? Built models, deployed models, ran models, and would just kind of keep demanding more from the IT department, right? I need more compute. I need more. IT just kept going back every year and say, I don't know, these data guys need more, so we better put it together in another capital paper and just keep growing it and growing it and growing it. Nobody's really actually looking at the cost of running any of it. What's the real return on the investment of any of these things? When you move it to the cloud, all of a sudden you start paying for it in a way that you actually see it and you can track it at a per user, per deployment. And then you start asking them and say, hey, Sanjeev, well, what is this? What do you got going on here? Oh, I don't know. That was just a test. I don't need that anymore. Oh, I don't know what that is. That was like 3 years ago. We could turn that off. We rationalized well north of 1,000 models out of our environment that, look, to a data scientist running it in their sandbox, it was free. So why not run it, right? But when you start trying to clean it up, I think it's great. It really gives you better hygiene, and you keep track of it. You're more incented to it. And I think, data scientists in the modern world are developers, right? They build models, they deploy models. They're running production workloads. This is their pipeline. They're not throwing it over the wall to IT. They're running it themselves. This is their pipeline. This is their code. They now have the tools. They have the data to see, is this model efficient? Could I tune it? Could I make this model perform better? Whether that's a latency metric or a cost metric, these are important things. And I actually think that, treating data scientists like data engineers and actually giving them the same tools you would give an SRE running a Java application in production is actually what they want from a career perspective, because they're now really holistic engineers. And it's very exciting, I think, in a modern data science shop to see the pride and passion that a data engineer has today about what they're running in their pipeline in prod, just the same as a sysadmin or a DBA would have in years gone by, about how they've tuned and tweaked, the index on a table to improve performance. And this is just the modern evolution of that.
Where do these data scientists and data engineers reside within Equifax? Are they in a central team, or did they get moved to different business domains?
So my goal is to keep the people as close to our customers as possible. Right. I think it's critical, in any well-run, technology company, that you've got a central function of architecture, design, operations, product, the whole mindset of the philosophical approach to here's how we see the world. Right. I think that's critical. And as you do that, you enable everybody to kind of go off as fast as they can with customers. You're always holding them accountable back to, no, but we said this, so you can do whatever you want, but you got to stay within the box. And we'll obviously always adjust the box, but as long as you stay within the box, go for it. So our data scientists, work in our global DNA organization, so that they have a common kind of brotherhood, sisterhood of commonality. But they are distributed out within the business teams, out within sometimes our customers, sitting at customer sites, co-developing with customers. And so they need to be free to run as fast as they can, what I would call locally. But you're always holding them centrally accountable for the philosophical approach on how we're going to work.
How do you ensure that the data governance standards are being consistently maintained? The data integrity, data quality, business glossary of what different terms mean across different domains. Customers could be, same identity could be in many different domains. So how is that handled?
Well, one of the benefits of being on a common data fabric globally is that we're running the same architecture everywhere. So our enterprise data office, which is a central function, reviews and oversees all of the domains that are being stood up, and subdomains, and so people know to come and have a conversation before they go stand something new up, and make sure that it's not duplicative of something else, and have that debate. We agree on, what is that domain? And is that domain fit for purpose? Or is that domain really a subdomain of another domain, and all of that? And so we do govern that quite tightly. That's how we got down to the 155 number I talked about earlier. We do govern that. But we govern that in a way that brings commonality. But once we agree on that structure, then the teams can all operate the same way on how they're going to build their pipelines and feed data into that domain structure. So it's always that balancing act of making sure you've got enough control without too much control. I think at the same time, there's always going to be folks that think they're smarter than everybody else, and just want to go do their own thing. And, honestly, culturally, we just don't have room for that in our organization, right? What we have room for are brilliant people that recognize the power of commonality. And as a decision intelligence business, knowing that if we can't bring our data together, if I can't link it together, there's no way that I'm going to be the best at finding that signal, doing it at speed. And so really at the end of the day, our teams are incented to have the best decision, the best outcome, the best, score, whatever it is, as fast as possible. And it does them no benefit to, sprawl the infrastructure or sprawl data. It is a completely aligned goal. that we have it all together. And I think, as you can find those aligned goals, then it really helps culturally. You go along with, what would be, in my view, a modern way to think about a DNA organization.
This has been fascinating. Thank you so much. We're coming close to our end of our time here. I could go on forever. I've got like literally a few hundred questions coming through my mind. But before we end, when I saw you last time, I was amazed by how many countries you travel to every single year. So what's been your travel situation this year? You're always
Well,
on
I
the
was down. So yeah, I mean, I'm continuing that journey. I love being out with our teams and with our customers, hearing from the market. And I think last quarter I was in Australia, I was in the UK, I was down in Brazil. I think Brazil a few weeks ago down there with our latest acquisition, talking to our team, welcoming them to the company, listening to the journey they're on as they're going through their own mainframe, transformation, and figuring out how are we going to, intercept each other. I love being out with the team, and it's great to see us add Brazil as our latest country. Amazing opportunities there. When I was in Australia, talking to customers and listening to what's on their mind. What are their biggest challenges and risks? What are they facing? And so, I think it's fantastic to be out. I think, look, humans are social creatures.
Yeah.
We learn from each other. That's how you and I met, being out. So I look forward to hearing the feedback from your viewers, and maybe we can attack some more questions in the next chapter.
Absolutely. In fact, just talking about travel, I was so amused when I saw you last. You were giving me suggestions of where to go in India and what to see, because you've been to India numerous times, far more than I have been to India. So that
I
was
love India. In fact, yes, I've been to India this year, and I'll be going again at the very start. I was going to actually go this time this year, but with Diwali going on, I think I would have gone. I would have had a great time going to all of the parties and celebrations, but I wouldn't have gotten much work done. So I chose not to go right now. But we have an amazing team in India. Both the business, which is also, it's fascinating in terms of the volume and scale of what's going on in India, but also our engineering teams and our of what we have stood up in our two big engineering centers. Just so proud of the team. So it's fantastic. And that's a whole other podcast right
Yes,
there.
yeah. Sounds, in fact, there's so many ideas here, but I love your suggestion to the viewers. If you have burning questions, especially about very complex migrations into the cloud, please send it over. Bryson, thank you so much for taking the time to share your lessons learned and educating us on your experiences. Really, really appreciate you came on this show. Thank you.